topic is called the foolishness of man. We're going to go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all by Hashem, Hamashayach Yahushai, giving thanks to the Heavenly Father Yahweh by him. All praises. And the foolishness of man has so much to do with what we see today. We see these educated men, these billionaires, these trillionaires, they come up with these new inventions. They have money to win people over. They have money to create things. They have money to change policies. They have money to change laws. But they're still doing foolish stuff, very foolish stuff, things that don't make any sense to us. But with all that being said, the Most High has prepared a pathway for us. And we're going to go into our Apocrypha. We're going to go to Tobit, chapter 3, verse 17. Tobit, chapter 13, verse 3. And I've been to this verse many times. You brothers and sisters have heard this before, but we got to hear it again. Tobit, chapter 13, verse 3. Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. So we are confessing him before the Gentiles. Now there's a double meaning for Gentiles. There are the Israelites who have been swallowed up by the Gentiles, who act like Gentiles, and then there are the actual heathen. But I'm going to read this again. Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. There declare his greatness, and extol him before all the living. For he is our power, and he is the Most High, our Father, forever. He will scourge us for our iniquities, and will have mercy again, and will gather us out of all nations among whom he hath scattered us. This lets us know that we have been scattered amongst all nations. This lets us know that we have been going through tribulations while we've been in these nations. This message is for us. Now, when you look at the Balfour Declaration Act that happened in 1940, 1938 to 1940, where the so-called Jewish people moved to Israel based on that Balfour Declaration. These people were not in any dire straits in the countries that they were in, other than the Nazis putting some of them concentration camps, okay? But even with them, they were put there for holding tanks. And then when illnesses broke out, they started to put them in incinerators because they didn't want the illness to break out all over the camps. And that's just the truth. Many document articles based on that. They didn't really want to kill them. It's just the way it happened because of the illnesses that were breaking out. People were dying from plagues. And so that's how they did away with them. But they wasn't really in any dire straits prior to that. They weren't in captivity in different parts of the world. They were living really well because this was after the Inquisition. So we have to understand that the people that came after the Inquisition were converts. And so when the scriptures tells us in Tobit that there declare his greatness and extol him before all the living, for he is our power, and he is our power, the Most High of our Father forever, and he will scourge us for our iniquities. That's dealing with what we're dealing with today. We see it so much. The amount of evidence that's piling up on social media devices have shown us time and time again of all the atrocities they have done to us, the Israelites, the Negroes, and the Native Americans. Okay, all these atrocities have been done on us, and they have gotten away with it. And the Most High is watching us. This is why he says, there declare his greatness and extol him before all the living, for he is our power, the Most High, our Father, forever. And he will scourge us for our iniquities, and will have mercy again, and will gather us out of all nations among whom he hath scattered us. We have been scattered. How have we been scattered? By the slave ships. This verse is very impressive. This verse is very valid for us today. And so when we go into the scriptures, we know why that we were scattered to all the nations, because we broke the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. So when we start keeping those laws, statutes, and commandments again, this turns into a testimony. This is how we declare to all the Israelites scattered amongst the nations. We declare this testimony that we have laws, statutes, and commandments, and we are supposed to come back to the Father by keeping his laws, statutes, commandments, and repent for all of our sins. Okay? These are the prayers that we must say, and these are the things we must tell our brethren. Let's go to Revelation chapter 6. Revelation chapter 6. And let's go to verse 9. Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. And it reads, and when he had opened the fifth seal, who's the he? This is Yahushua in the kingdom of heaven. This is him sitting next to the Father. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the sons of them that were slain for the word of the Most High, and for the testimony which they held. See that? So there was a testimony that they held, and that testimony was what we received from the beginning, our first love. Our first love, according to 2 John, is the keeping of the commandments, as we received in the beginning. Verse 10, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O power, holy and true, doest thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Because the Most High told us, if we keep the commandments, that we will have no troubles, that he will free us and hide us from the scourge of the tongue, from the destruction at hand. He told us this. So when we read these scriptures, the Most High is telling us that we have to keep a testimony and we have to cry to him so we could be redeemed from this land. It says, how long, O power, holy and true, doest thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Who's dwelling on the earth? Who's ruling on the earth? This is how you know this is presently going on. That dwell on the earth. Who are them that cause problems for us on the earth? It's the Gentile nations.
I want to show you how being in Babylon is a curse for those of you who don't think that you've fallen under the curses. If we go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, I want to just show you this, and then I'm going to show you a video that substantiates what this verse is saying. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 28, verse 65. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 65. And it says, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall thou sole of thy foot have rest. But the Most High shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And this is what Revelation chapter 6 and 9 was saying. How long shall we dwell on the earth at the hand of this man? That's what it's talking about. So when we go to the 66th verse, because there's no ease here working up under this man. There's no ease. Then it says, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. Now you may think, well, I got a good job, I got benefits, I've made it, I'm an empty nester, or I got children. You know, you may think that you're living a well life, a sincere, prudent life, but you're still under the curses. You're still dealing with turmoil within these nations. Verse 67, in the morning thou shalt say, with the Most High were even. And at evening thou shalt say, with the Most High it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the night, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. In other words, in the daytime, you're going to wish it was nighttime. And at nighttime, you're going to wish that it was morning. And you will see no ease. You will see no end. You're like stuck in a vortex where you can't get out. You're doing the same repetitious things over and over and over. Why? Because it's part of the curses. So here's a brother from outside of America looking into America and seeing what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
80% of African Americans, stop pretending, cannot afford to come to Africa.
Wow, really?
I'm saying they cannot afford. They may want it in their heart, but America has them shoes, have them bootstrapped, tied. Because guess what? They have to pay mortgage every month. They have to pay their car note every month. They have to pay their insurance every month. They can't even watch DSTV unless they pay every month.
Wow.
So how are you going to have money to say, let me go back and learn about my family, my history, my roots one every month? You have to worry about, I got to pay this. I got to pay. When do you get a break to think?
Wow.
But that's the system. This allows me to control you left, right. Because you never have time to stop and say, oh, how do I work on this, or where do I go from here? You don't have that time. When you live in America, most people, if they're being honest, on the first of the month, from the first to about the 20th, 25th of the month is when you finish paying your bills.
Wow. Wow.
You probably got about maybe 5 to 7 days in a month that you can actually think without thinking about paying the bill.
And this is a pretty clear examination of what we're going through. A lot of us can't see out, but those outside can see in and see what we're dealing with.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So Deuteronomy 28 explains it all. It talks about how we would be sold to our enemies. And so this is why we can't get away. We're stuck. We're still in their hands. And so this is why we have not frenemies, we have enemies. We know they got their power from us breaking the law, statutes, and commandments. But let's see what made them who they were.
How did they get the power? Where did they come from, these Gentile nations? In order to find that out, you have to go to the table of nations and locate their origins and see how they kind of escalated over time, right? So if we go to Genesis chapter 10, remember this chapter, Genesis chapter 10 is always and will always be known for the table of nations. This is where all the nations come from. This is the naming of each nation by the Most High Yahweh, by Shem HaMashiach. Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. And let's drop down to verse 5. Let's start at verse 1 first. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Unto them were sons born after the flood. So a cataclysm happened where the Most High flooded the whole earth. And the next one, he said, is going to come by fire. So who flooded the whole earth? The Most High. How's the next one going to come? By the Most High. It's going to be fire. Let's go to verse 5. Drop down to verse 5. It says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So look at the points that he's saying, how these Gentiles are divided. He said, after their lands, after their tongues, after their families, and after their nations. Okay? After their lands, tongues, families, and nations. So when you hear Shemitic, and you look up the definition for Shemitic in today's terms, they say Shemitic was formed by the language. That's how you know who's Shemitic. But they always miss this part. They always miss that the Shemitic people came from a land. They always miss that the Shemitic people came from a family and a nation. They'll say tongues always. This is how they make the difference between the Israelites and the rest of the world. And they'll say he's anti-Semitic. And they base that off of the language only, not after the family. The family is important. The land is important. Remember that. Very important. So this is why we were robbed of our heritage. And how were we robbed? We were robbed of our language. the first thing they made us get rid of was our language. I don't know if you brothers and sisters can see it. Can you brothers and sisters see it, the yay or nay? And this is from a book called Black Athena by Martin Bernal. And I want you to see how the languages govern the people and how the languages change the people. It says Black Athena at the top, and it says Aramaic. All right? And can you see it?
Oh.
Con. All right. Yeah, so if you didn't receive it, I'm going to read it. So I'm going to read basically the title of each and the description. And it says Aramaic. Now, we know Aramaic as being a version of Hebrew, right? Or Judaism is what they call it nowadays, but Judaism didn't exist in those days. So this language was like English back in those days. Everyone spoke it. And it says, a West Semitic language originally spoken in parts of what is now Syria. A West Semitic language. So if they're saying West Semitic language, where did the Semitic language or the Semitic tongue originally originate at? Mesopotamia. Now that's west of what we call Israel today. Okay? West Semitic language. West of Israel is where you get into the, well, as of today, is where you get into the dark nations. But in those days, everything in that area was dark. But it says a West Semitic language originally spoken in parts of what is now Syria that became the lingua franca of the Assyrian, Neo-Babylonian, and much of the Persian Empire. So even on the east side of the Mesopotamia, they were speaking this language called Aramaic. It says it replaced, I said again, it replaced the Canaanite dialects of Phoenician and Hebrew. So this was a newfound language, Aramaic. Came from the Assyrians there. But originally, the brothers and sisters were speaking Phoenician and Hebrew. And it says in the East Mediterranean during the middle of the first millennium BC. It was in its turn replaced by Greek and Arabic. Like I said before, that Arabic is a new language in the old country. Okay, there was no one speaking Arabic before. It was only Aramaic. Greek was being spoken above in the Crete areas, in Europe, Indo-European areas. But it says it was in its turn replaced by Greek and Arabic, though it still survives in some remote villages. So this should really make us think on even the Arabic languages, because a lot of us say that, and I've said it, that Arabic is closer to Hebrew. It is closer to the Aramaic Hebrew, but it's not closer to the Phoenician and ancient Hebrew. So that is totally different. Let's go over to the next slide where it says Canaanite. Canaanite. Notice in this definition of Canaanite, it says that it was a Semitic language. It says Canaanite, a Semitic language. So these Canaanites were speaking Shemitic languages. It should be S-H-E-M, but they got Semitic. Should be Shemitic language. Heavily influenced by Egyptian, spoken in southern Syro-Palestine between 1500 and 500 BC, when it was displaced by Aramaic. Remember what Joseph said in Psalms chapter 81. Remember what he said. He said, let me get it real quick. Psalms 81, Joseph had made a statement when he went into Egypt. Psalms 81, verse 5. Psalms 81, verse 5. This is what Joseph said. He said, this he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt where I heard a language that I understood not. Why didn't Joseph understand the Egyptian language? Because he was in the midst of the Canaanites, which spoke a different dialect. The Canaanites adopted the ancient Sumerian language, which came before the Phoenician language. This side of Ham, the Canaanites, were actually speaking the ancient Sumerian language. They were not speaking a Hamitic language of Egypt. They gave up that language to speak the Phoenician and Hebrew language. So I'll read it again. Canaanite, a Semitic language heavily influenced by Egyptian, spoken in southern Syro-Palestine or Philistine between 1500 and 500 BC, when it was displaced by Aramaic. So Aramaic came and pushed those two out of the way. The Phoenician and Hebrew are the best known later Canaanite dialects. Canaanite is also used to describe the material culture of southern Syro-Palestine in the late Bronze Age. Remember, why would Canaanites adopt this when they were the majority? So once the Canaanites adopted this, because it says that Shem in the scriptures was not one of the biggest nations. Shem was one of the smallest nations. So Canaan came in, took that language over, and used it, that Sumerian language, that Phoenician language, and was actually speaking an ancient Hebrew language, formal language. So we actually learned that language from them. Shem and Canaan were speaking Sumerian languages, ancient Sumerian language, which came before the Phoenicians. All right, and this, again, happened during the late Bronze Age. Let's go over to the next slide, which is Egyptian. Egyptian. Okay, I'm going to read the definition of Egyptian. It reads, this is used here to refer not to the Arabic dialect. The Arabic was what they speak now in Egypt. They don't speak the ancient Egyptian language. They speak an Arabic language now. This is used here to refer not to the Arabic dialect spoken in Egypt today, but to the language of ancient Egypt. They call this ancient Egypt because, remember, it said Arabic was along with the Greek. But the Arabic stayed in that area, right? It says, which was an independent Afro-Asiatic language. So what is it telling you here? That language should have been Afro-Asiatic originally. I'm going to read that again. This is used here to refer not to the Arabic dialect spoken in Egypt today. So it said today this is not the same Arabic. So even the Arabic language is the same, but to the language of ancient Egypt, which was an independent Afro-Asiatic language. It is subdivided into Old Egyptian, spoken during the Old Kingdom from 3250 to 2200 BC, and Middle Egyptian, spoken during the Middle Kingdom from 2200 to 1750 BC. So they knew that this was an Afro-Asiatic people. These people were black. It said, which remained the official language for the next 1500 years. When Egyptian is used without epithet, it usually refers to this. Late Egyptian was spoken by the 16th century, but it was not commonly used in writing until the end of the millennium. It was, I argue, late Egyptian that had the greatest influence on Greek. Look at that. For the later stages, Demotic and Coptic, the above. All right, so Coptic came a little later. A lot of the brothers in Egypt speak Coptic today. All right, let's go over to the next one. The next one is Hebrew, the language Hebrew. And the definition of the Hebrew, look what it says. It says Canaanite dialect, spoken in the kingdoms of Israel. So the ancient Hebrew was of a Canaanite dialect, which they incorporated from the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians incorporated from the ancient Sumerians. Judah and Moab, between 1500 and 500 BC, they both were speaking this language. For religious reasons, it is often treated as the distinct language which, with the disappearance of the other Canaanite dialects, it has since become. So who was speaking this? Abraham was speaking it. Lot was speaking it. Jacob was speaking it. The 12 tribes of Israel were speaking this language. Moab was speaking it. Ammon was speaking it. All right. Let's go over to the next slide. I believe this is the last slide. Now, this is the definition of Phoenician, the part that I wanted you to see. I'll read it. It says, indicates the greatest period of the city's history between 1100 and 750 BC, talking about Phoenicia. All right. Now it says, the Phoenician language was like Hebrew, a dialect of Canaanite. So this is why when you read ancient books, it always says that Shem was always with Canaan. And this is why Jacob and Esau, this is why their father told Esau, don't marry a Canaanite woman. He wanted them to stay within their own people, right? Because we were overwhelmed with Canaanites. So he wanted us to grow as a nation. Most High put that spirit on him. He said, hey, marry your own, because he wanted us to grow. Isaac was trying to stick to that epithet. The alphabet is often referred to as a Phoenician invention. It may well have originated in the region, but it was developed long before the Phoenician period. Very interesting. I just wanted you to see that because we had read about Genesis chapter 10, verse 5, where the scriptures had said every people of the Gentiles were by their language. And as we read this, you can see how the languages have changed, right? Or they've been kind of trumped over by other languages. This is why I'm trying to tell you that even though that is our custom to speak that language, we can't find it today. We are barely scratching the surface of our language, barely. And so when people say, well, you're not Shemitic, you don't speak the language. Well, when you read Genesis chapter 10 and 5, it says the Gentiles were divided in their lands, not only their tongues, but after their families in their nations. So that's the same thing with all other nations. We're divided by our families, by our nations, and by our land. You can't give that up. And this is what they try to make the difference. Like, oh, you're not Shemitic because you don't speak the language. Well, our language has been stolen from us. Revelation 13 and 6. Revelation 13 and 6. And notice what the Most High says in Revelation 13 and 6 versus what we just read in Genesis 10 and 5. He says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High. Who's he? This is Satan and his children. To blaspheme his name. Whose name? Israel's name or the Most High's name? The Most High's name. And his tabernacle, that's his land, which is over there in Israel, and them that dwelt in heaven. Who are them that are supposed to be dwelling in heaven? That's us. That's what we say in our Father's prayer. We wish that thy kingdom come soon so we could dwell back in heaven. So who are these? These are the Israelites that are supposed to be dwelling in heaven. Those are the pillars that are supposed to be the way they are. That's what we read in Revelation 21 when he mentions the pillars of the apostles, the gates of the angels, the gates of the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what he's talking about. So as far as our language, we may not get our language back, but as far as our name, it's going to come back. Everything is going to come back. The tabernacle is going to come back. All right? These are things that we got to know as Israelites. All this stuff is going to come back. So let's go to Isaiah 65 and 15. Isaiah 65 and 15. Because that's important. They took away our language, right? Then they took away our name. Isaiah 65, verse 15. And it says, and ye shall leave your name for a curse unto my chosen. For the Most High thy power shall slay thee, and call his servants by another name. So our name was changed. Our language was taken. Our name was taken.
Maybe Mr. Waller will let everyone enjoy this blessed day. I want you healthy. so you'll work hard. And all you have to do is tell me your name.
I'm Kunta Kinte, son of a...
Your name is Toby. Now tell me your name.
I'm Kunta Kinte.
That's not your name. Toby's your name. Now what is your name?
Say it. Kunta Kinte.
Toby's your name. Now I'll ask you again. Tell me your name. Say it! Say it! Say it! Toby!
Say it. Kunta Kinte.
Toby! It's Toby! Now say it! Toby! Damn you! Black liquor bastard. You will not move from here till you say your name. Not if night falls or a new day comes. Now you will say Toby. Say it. Say it! Say it! Say it!
Tomorrow I hurt my boy.
Please. I'm here.
No, Benta. I can't see our boy. I've looked for him everywhere. He isn't coming home.
When you live in America, most people, if they're being honest, on the first of the month, from the first to about the 20th, 25th of the month,
say your name.
Is when
your owner's
you
boy
finish paying your
chose
bill.
for you.
Wow.
Say your
You
name.
probably got about maybe
so you know
5
this ain't Africa.
to 7
this
days
is
in a
Virginia,
month
and you're the
that you
property
can
of
actually
John
think
Waller, like the horses
without
and hogs,
thinking about
nothing
paying the
more.
bill.
Say your name so you know what you are. Say it. Say it. Say it! Say it! Say your name! Say it! Say Toby! Tell me your name! Say it, damn you! Say Toby! Just say your name!
He said,
Say it again. Louder. What's your name? What's your name?
That's why now we're going to be called after the Most High, but it's going to be the children of Israel going to be called after sons of God. That's why he calls us the sons of the power. All the Israelites are going to be called sons of the power. Let's go to Hosea 1 and 10. Hosea 1 and 10. Verse 10, and it reads, Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living power. So the children of Israel are going to be called the sons of the living power. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land. For great shall be the day of Jezreel. See that? We're going to be called the sons of the power in this land. They took away our language. They took away our name. They took away our land. We're going to come up out of this land, out of this foolish land. Isaiah 62, verse 2. Isaiah 62, verse 2. And the Gentiles shall see thy righteousness, and all kings thy glory. And thou shalt be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Most High shall name. Thou shalt also be a crown of glory in the hand of the Most High, and a royal diadem in the hand of thy power. Thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate, but thou shalt be called Hephzibah, and thy land Beulah, meaning beautiful, or delight. For the Most High delighteth in thee, and thy land shall be merry. So we're going to come back to our land, and we're going to be named after the land again. Unlike the Gentiles, we're going to be in that land first this time. The first, this is the last will be first, and the first will be last. We're going to be first to go in that land. All praise to the Most High. Now, let's go back to Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. Now it says, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of the Most High. So there's going to come a time where we're going to be slain just for keeping these laws, statutes, commandments, just for teaching the word of Hamashayach Yahushua. It's going to be a time that's going to come. A lot of people want to die now. They want to get it out the way and just believe and die. A lot of people want to do that now. They don't want to go through this process, be slain for the word of the Most High. That is going to happen soon. Be ready for that. And then it says, and for the testimony which they held. Now this testimony, everybody don't know this song. This is the testimony we have been talking about. This is the testimony we are going to be fighting for. Right? Revelation chapter 19 and 10. Revelation 19 and 10. Revelation 19 and 10. Remember what we're going to be slain for. Revelation 19 and 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, see thou do it not. That's an angel telling him, don't do this. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushua. Worship the Most High Yahweh. For the testimony of Yahushua is the spirit of prophecy. This is what we're going to be slain for, our prophecy, talking about this world coming to the end. They're going to get tired of that. It's going to be like we can't say stuff about gay and homosexual and transgender people. There's going to come a time where we can't talk about the end of this world. Like the destruction coming. They ain't going to hear that no more. They're going to make it a law where you can't say nothing about the end of this world, that it's going to be destroyed. That's the prophecy, right? It's going to be destroyed. They want it to go on forever. Remember, it says their houses, they want them to go forever, right? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 8. They don't want this place to fall. They're holding it up best way they can. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20. To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. We can't shut up. We got to continue to push it. Now, we know that this word, when it comes to Yahushua, Hebrews 10 and 8, he says that he comes in the volume of the whole book. It is written of me, right, to do thy will. So we know that this testimony of Yahushua has something to do with the Most High's will, and this is the part that people are not going to get in the Christian churches. The scriptures talk about the testimony from Deuteronomy all the way to the end of the Bible. Actually, from Exodus to the end of the Bible. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 31, verse 18. Exodus chapter 31, verse 18. Okay? And it reads, let's start at 17. It says, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever, forever. For in 6 days the Most High made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. We are refreshing today. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony. Tables of stone. What is that? The commandments. What is the testimony? It's the tables of stone. Yahushua replaced that with being a living testimony. It's not stone for anymore. The living testimony still has the commandments in it. So that's the testimony. 2 tables of the testimony. Take away the tables of stone, and now it's in Yahushua, written with the finger of the Most High. So we are to keep the commandments. You see that? What's the testimony? Following Yahushua and keeping the Most High's commandments. That's the testimony. The testimony was in the Old Covenant and in the New Covenant, as the Christian churches will call it. But it's in our covenants. That's a beautiful thing. All these commandments are our testimony. I want to go to 1 Peter. Let's look at the foolish men. 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. So now you have the basics. You have the understanding of why we're called Shemitic. It's based on more than just a tongue. All right? And then you know about the commandments, of course. All right? That's our testimony. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. And it reads, Dearly beloved, who are the beloved? The children of Israel. We're the only ones called beloved. I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against thy soul. Now, why would he tell us this and call us strangers and pilgrims? Because we're strangers to the land of Israel. We haven't been there in a while, and we're strangers where we are. We're exiled in the place of the Gentiles. So we're strangers and pilgrims everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, we are the pilgrims. We are the strangers. It says, abstain from fleshly lust. Now he's giving us warnings of what? Our testimony, which war against the soul. Having your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, because that's what they do when we keep the laws, they may by your good works which they shall behold glorify the Most High in the day of visitation. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Most High's sake. Follow the laws of the land and the laws of the Most. Follow the rules and the ordinances of this wicked land so you don't get caught up in dire straits in prison or paying fines. You want to live in peace with all men, and that's what this is telling us as Israelites. He knows that we're not in the land. Having your conversations honest amongst the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you evildoers, they may be your good works, which they shall behold. Glorify the Most High the day of visitation. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Most High's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. For so is the will of the Most High, that with well-doing ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. Y'all see that? That's our job. Put to silence the ignorance of foolish men by keeping the testimony, by knowing who you are. You're Shemitic based on your family, not just your tongue, but based on your family and your nation. Verse 16, as free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, right? Because some brothers use that liberty of keeping these laws of the land as a form of being able to do all the lustful things that they want, which is not in their law, but in our law. Can't be lustful and committing fornication and adultery and all that, because that's part of our law. As free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as the servants of the Most High. Honor all men, love thy brotherhood, fear the Most High, honor the king. This is what the Most High is telling us to do. Have some wisdom about yourself. That's what it's about. Just like Tobit said, we are scattered amongst the Gentiles. That makes a lot of us foolish when we don't keep the Most High's laws. We are amongst a foolish nation, and we're going to take on their traits. A lot of us are going to take on their traits because they don't have the laws of the Most High. Let's go to Romans chapter 10. Romans chapter 10, verse 19. But I say, did not Israel know? Did we not know the commandments? First Moses said, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I will anger you. We have been put here to wake up. We have been put here to recognize the foolishness of these people in this land. These people act as fools. But when we stand for the Most High, the Gentiles will commit all types of atrocities against us when they start realizing that we are the children of the Most High. They would try to slay us, as Revelation chapter 6 and 9 says. We're going to put our testimony to the use of bringing judgment on them. That's what we're going to be doing. Because if you look at our forefathers, Jeremiah chapter 46, our forefathers did this. Our forefathers was bringing judgments on the Gentiles based on their evilness against us. Jeremiah 46. And it's not only against the heathen, but against our own people that were swallowed up acting like the Gentiles. Jeremiah chapter 46, verse 1. I just want this one verse. It says, the word of the Most High which came to Jeremiah the prophet against the Gentiles. So where did this word come from? It came from the Most High, and it's against the Gentiles. Yahushua did the same thing. Matthew chapter 12, verse 18. Matthew 12 and 18. It reads, behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment to the Gentiles. This is double standard. This is reach one, teach one to our brothers who are in Gentile state of mind, and to bring judgment on those Gentiles who want to hear and understand what's going to happen, and that's going to be judgment. Judgment is coming on this place. The prophecy of Yahushua is coming on this place. They don't want to hear it. That's why they're going to slay us. Let's go to John chapter 7. John chapter 7. John chapter 7, verse 35. John chapter 7, verse 35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles? All right, so we got Israelites dwelling amongst the Gentiles, and teach the Gentiles? So if he teaches the Gentiles, more than likely it's going to be Israelites, but they're going to be Gentiles listening. The judgment is going to be a double-edged sword. It's going to take our own people out and the Gentiles out. That's why he says, don't go hand in hand with these heathens. It's going to take them out. He's going to take them out, and if you hand in hand with them and haven't changed, you're going to take you out too.
Shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep south, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here. And God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
So we now know that we are amongst the worst of the heathen. And by that, we know that while we are in the truth, we will see things that make absolutely no sense coming from the heathen. You know, we're going to see things that just don't make any sense. And we see that right now. We see it, like I said, we see it with the politics. We see it with the education systems. I mean, just stupid stuff with these homosexuality and transgender stuff in the school systems. But they're not even teaching our children nothing. They're not teaching our children math, English, none of that stuff. They ain't teaching. I mean, even the stupid laws that they're passing. You know, we see the ill will with that. We see even the science. We recently saw in the news about the submersible Titan that imploded with 5 passengers in it. Now, is that intelligence? You go down in the ocean and see a Titanic ship? Or is that stupidity? Is that foolishness? These people, they were descending into the bottom of the ocean to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. That's what they say. But they submerged, it says that they submerged approximately about 13,000 feet below sea level. Now, going down underwater that deep has several unsafe protocols. The pressure alone underwater is literally like backbreaking. They said the amount of weight that caused that Titan to implode that way, it was like them being crushed underneath the Empire State Building. Like all that weight is coming down. Just imagine that. Imagine the amount of that pressure. The only way I can understand that to happen is they can never guess what the formula is to going underwater. I mean, I try to wrap my mind around it, like, how is the pressure so great underneath the ocean like that? I mean, the Most High, the way he created this thing is just unbelievable. We know, that the Most High is all in all, but the only experience that I could say that I have when it comes to dealing with pressure like that is swimming pool. And with every pool, well, most pools today, they all have like a filtration system. They have like a filter system that is pressurized in a container. And normally that filter system is either above the pool, or if you got a basement, it's below the pool. But it's pressurized. It's like in a pressurized container that regulates the water to maintain its levels without draining out or running over. And you look at the ocean, it's kind of like that too. The water don't really drain out, nor does it go too low, right? That's the way the Most High got it set. And so pools, when I look at pools, my mind is working like that. But the Most High has the same thing under the sea. He got that pressurization. And man can't, like I said, they can't completely understand that formula because it's kind of like the wind. It keeps changing. So they can never get the stuff right. When you see the Navy, they got these submersible submarines that go underwater, and they're continually regulating the pressures, going up and down. But with something that small, it's just amazing to me how somebody with so much money, you got a billionaire going underwater, and you got these guys, these are scientists. They have done all these studies for years and years. Most of these guys are in their 50s, 60s, going underwater to try to see the ship. But they can't get the formula right. It's almost like they can't understand how the pressure is regulated. This lets you know that the Most High is no joke. Then you got all these commentators, these Monday night quarterbacks, analyzing the incident and saying, well, it was like a shockwave event that took out the Ocean Gate submersible power. It just totally took it out. But the Navy spotted the wreckage like days before the news even got the information. The Navy had already spotted the wreckage. So they was basically holding information. So what kind of information do the Navy have? These are things that we don't know, but one thing I do know is this whole incident, the Most High is controlling everything. Esau claims he has technology to see the bottom of the floor of the ocean, yet they have much difficulty locating the Ocean Gate. They have much difficulty locating the point of incidence of where it was descending down into the ocean. The Most High is incredible. And that's why I say he's all in all the time. These Gentiles said they heard like a banging noise picked up in the sonar monitor earlier in the week where the debris was found. But they wasn't sure on their thoughts of the accuracy of where the banging noise was coming from based on the sonar monitor. So, you really got to think on what are these guys thinking about? What kind of wisdom are they using? These men who died had a spirit on them just to go underwater, but what kind of spirit? It wasn't the spirit of the Most High. What kind of spirit did they have? It was like the spirit of adventure. This spirit of adventure got them killed. And the scriptures talk about that all day long, of the different spirits of man, but the spirit of the Most High is what we need to be looking for. And the Most High, he's just showing us how ignorant they are when it comes to his creation. I want to go to 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. Check this verse out. It says, but they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. And that's what happened with these foolish men. Got all this money, got all this so-called scientific wisdom, and basically just plunged themselves to death. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1. At first, I wasn't even tripping off the submersible Titan, but as they kept talking, they kept making a big scene out of this thing. And I started to pay attention, and I was like, man, the foolishness of these people, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 19, it says, "For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent." The Most High is going to destroy the wise. Look at verse 20. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer in this world? Have not the Most High made foolish the wisdom of this world? And that's what he's showing us all the time. It seems like we've been seeing foolishness with everything in the last 2 decades. It's been getting more, actually the last four decades. And I say that because I'm thinking of Dan Quayle when he ran with George Bush, how idiotic this man was. He couldn't even spell potato. But the Most High is showing the foolishness of these men, right? Let's drop down to verse 27. "But the Most High hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise." We're talking about water here. They can't get under the water. The Most High calls the water dumb. Is that not foolish? He said he created the fish out of the dumb waters. He calls the waters dumb. But man can't figure it out. "But the Most High have chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And the Most High have chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty." That's why I said, don't underestimate yourself. Being an Israelite, the Most High hears us. Don't underestimate yourself and people thinking that you're black and you ain't got no understanding, because that's how they look at you. But the Most High used us to confound the heathen. Look at all the things we have done in this world. We have confounded them on every level. They are trying their best to keep the lid over us, but we keep confounding them in everything. They can't figure us out. When they disregard us and our heritage, the Most High, he is going to consume the heathen, and they're not going to know how it happened. You know? Let's go to Psalms 59. We are that missing link that throws them off. They think they got us under control, but they ain't got us under control. You know, it's just like the water. They think of the water as being something simple, but they can't control it. All right? They can't even stop a hailstorm from destroying a house. Psalms 59, verse 12. Psalms 59, verse 12. "For the sin of their mouth and the words of their lips, let them even be taken in their pride. And for cursing and lying which they speak, consume them in wrath, consume them, that they may not be. And let them know that the Most High ruleth where? In Jacob, unto the ends of the earth." Selah. The Most High is dealing with Jacob. You see that? Why did I bring this scripture out? Because the heathens said they made this dive for all humanity when they did this thing. They said it's for all humanity. Everyone's going to be blessed from this dive, this great dive that we're going to make down into the ocean. So they totally ignored the inhumane atrocities they have ever done to Jacob. They just totally ignored everything. They ignored the immigrants coming over here on ship, sacrificing their lives to get here on the oceans, and then sticking them in some kind of farming area to work for nothing, for pennies. They prevent us from even entering these so-called fields of study, going into the aquanautics area of study. They put up all these roadblocks before you even get it. There's not many of us in this field. You don't see too many. There might be one or two, but there's not many of us working in that field. Let's go to Psalms chapter 100. They want all the glory when it comes to that. Psalms 100, and let's look at verse 3. Know ye that the Most High, He is the Most High. It is He that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are His people, and the sheep of His pasture. If it was up to Esau, he'd tell us that he created us. He already do. He say that He Jesus Christ. He already say He God when you watch His movies. Our people think that they created us. We was here way before them. The superheroes are all like Esau, every single superhero. And the black ones, they always disappear. They don't want us having no hope. Jeremiah chapter 10. It's our fault too, because we won't stand up for justice and believe that we are God's chosen people, the Most High's chosen people. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2. It is just like Pat Robertson. He just died. All the so-called Christian icons are starting to die off. Billy Graham, Pat Robertson. What's the dude who used to come on TV? He died back in the used to be on all the time. Stanley used to come on TV on Sunday mornings before football games came on. Had a little glasses, trying to have a heart-to-heart with everybody. All these little so-called Christian ministers are dying off. There's a few of them left. There's not many left. They done brainwashed all of us. They done brought havoc on all of us. Then they set up guys like T.D. Jakes. How come they didn't get T.D. Jakes CBN to run it? I mean, if they love him so much, you would think they would give it to him. But they ain't going to give it to him. But he's going to follow after them. He's a lapdog. You're going to follow right after them. Doing the same thing, keeping our people asleep. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2. Thus saith the Most High, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them, but our people are dismayed at it. We've been scattered into all nations. The heathen know nothing, the Most High says. The Most High is not dealing with the heathen at all. Let's go to Job chapter 38. Their power, we go to the store, we get these little products all packaged up, and we think it's packaged up pretty and nice. Nobody else has been in it because you got to pop some of the bags open to see. But you let a little bit of air be in there. Man, they ain't putting too many chips in this thing. We be complaining over little things, the way they package soda cans, and we're all content with this stuff, right? That's what we're used to. Wrappers being on the candy and sealed. We think that we're getting good things when the poison is within all these things. It's wrapped up perfect, and we're falling for the okie doke all the time. Ticking time bombs. That's what we're eating. They tell you when you go into the grocery store, those who are health conscious, stay away from the aisles. You go into the grocery store, stay on the outside of the grocery store, outside of the aisles, and hit the produce, the meats. When you go into the center aisles, all them things that are packaged are bad for you. They're putting poison in all these little things. And we get so lost because it's packaged good. Oh, it can be bad. Look at how they packaged it up for us. Nobody's never been in this. The heathen don't know nothing. The heathen are all about lies. The book of Job. Let's go to the book of Job. Book of Job, chapter 38. All right? And your childhood makes it worse because you crave it, because that's what you used to do as a child. Job, chapter 38, verse 16. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? Right. Titan, that submersible ship, they didn't know nothing about the stuff the Most High is talking about, the springs of the sea. Or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? They called it a shock wave. That's what the scientists call that hit them. They said it was like a shock wave that took them out. How do we know that they didn't get hit with a spring that popped up like a geyser underneath the ocean? We don't know. It just hit them. Boom. They imploded. Have the gates of death been opened unto thee? Or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Let's jump over to verse 30. Job chapter 38, verse 30. The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. The Most High said, underneath the waters, it's frozen. Who would have thought that? You thinking you monitoring or using your sonars to tap the floor, but you just hitting a floor of ice. There might be water up underneath that ice, and a whole nother group of animals and beasts and fish up under there. They ain't never thought about that. You got ice underneath the oceans. Job chapter 38, let's read verse 4. Job 38, verse 4. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who has laid the measure thereof, if thou knowest? Or who has stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? The Most High did all these things, and man still can't comprehend it. They don't know how to go about their way on figuring this stuff out. It's all guesstimations. Let's go to Psalms chapter 104. Psalms 104, verse 24. O my power, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is this great and wide sea, wherein all things creeping, innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go those ships. There's that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. They always forget about Leviathan. Leviathan is under the ocean. He is under the sea. They cannot even tell you what's on the surface of the bottom of the sea, let alone Leviathan. Leviathan is smart and crafty. Scriptures tell you that in the Apocrypha, that he's just as smart as man, if not smarter. Let's go to Job 41. Let's look at Leviathan. Because we forget that the Most High created these things, and if the Most High said he created it, trust me, he created it. He talks about lions, he talks about giraffes, he talks about apes, he talks about peacocks. Everything that he's mentioned in the Bible, we've seen it. But we've never seen Leviathan or Behemoth, right? It's in the Bible. Look, he dedicated a whole chapter to Leviathan, just like he dedicated a whole chapter to Esau. He dedicated a whole chapter to Leviathan. Leviathan, let's look at Job 41, verse 1. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with the cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put a hook into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? And Most High saying all these things because man will never conquer Leviathan. He won't conquer him. Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? The only thing that I can think of that comes close to the description in Job chapter 41 is Godzilla. So it's that come close to. You read the description of all these things, these verses in here, and the verse creates into a description of Godzilla. Perfect description. Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Can thou fill his skin with barbed iron? Now, you know that's tough. Barbed irons. Iron pierces everything. You could take a pole, an iron pole, and thrust it through a man. It don't even have to be sharpened on the end of the barbed iron. It'll go right through a man's body. And it's telling you that Leviathan can't even put barbed iron through there. Or his head was fish spears. You can't even put a spear through his head. What's that tell you about this thing? Invincible. That's all I can see. Invincible. How do we know that Leviathan didn't have nothing to do with the Titanic? How do we know that might be the nesting grounds for Leviathan, where they plot that Titan submersible ship that went down there? We don't know. This thing is crafty. It says you can't even figure out, when you see him, you can't even figure out what part of his body is what. I'll just keep reading. Lay thy hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? You see him, and it's just a pitiful sight. It's going to put fear in your body all over. None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. Most I was telling you, everything created is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. I mean, if you go up under that water, you're going to see him, and you're going to hate that you saw him. Who can discover the face? There it is. Who can discover the face of his garment? All right. You see a man wearing a shirt. You know the end of a shirt, what it is. The shirt going over to your arm, your sleeves, you know what part of the shirt that is. But with Leviathan, you can't make out his skin on his body, where it leads to. Got to think about that. What is it? You can't even figure out what you're looking at. All right? Or who can come to him with his double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face? That tells you about his teeth. His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a cloak seal. All right? When those scientists called the event of the Titan submersible a shockwave, what in the world is that? What is a shockwave? They said it was a shockwave. It just took out all the power. Right? It says one is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together. That they cannot be sundered. By his nesting a light doeth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Wow. Out of his mouth go burning lamps. That's that shockwave. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils go smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. So, whatever Leviathan is, he has weapons. His whole body is a weapon. And we've seen the Most High create animals that are like a weapon. You see a tiger, and he blends in with the jungle. His stripes, his ears, everything blends in. But when he comes out, you ain't got nowhere to run. His fangs, his claws, his speed, his agility, his strength, you ain't going to run. So just imagine Leviathan. The Most High created this thing underneath the waters. They'll never find them. They don't have, the machines are just, you've seen the UFOs and the planes trying to catch the UFO? Well, that's the same way with Leviathan down underneath the water. Man is already blind going around down in the water. And when you see the submersible machines, when they try to look through a so-called window that they have in their ships or the submarines, they only can see so far. They got a light that beams that they have on the submarines that kind of beam over the window where they can see what's in front of them, but it only goes so far. They don't go that far. It may be less than an earshot of 3 people standing in front of you. The Leviathan is just dancing around this thing. Ain't no way they can catch him. And they say they hear bangings on the bottom of the ocean all the time. They say that's something that the ocean does. How we know they ain't Leviathan? But the main thing is this. Let's read verse 31. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. Upon earth there is not his like, who is made without fear. This is the part right here. He beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. If you have pride and you are in his kitchen or habitation, he got you. You're mincemeat. These men that got in that Titan ship to go down, they were full of pride. We didn't know about what they was doing until they started looking for having search calls. In other words, if nothing had happened, we would have never known about it. Pride, full of pride. They're going to do what they want to do. I'm going to end this lesson with this right here, but just know that the Most High would make everything of this man that he thinks that's of wisdom, is going to make it look foolish to us. They are not operating in the truth. They don't know nothing about the laws, statutes, and commandments that we are supposed to keep, how to keep them. They don't think that Jacob is of any significance, but Jacob will trump and be lords over all in the last days.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.
Ago, and I may have mentioned this before with you all, but if not, I'll mention it again. It had to do with what you read in Genesis chapter 10, which is the Table of Nations, and when you get to verse 5, when it says, but these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one after their tongue, after their families, and in their nations. Now, someone had tried to present the fact that it needs to be even more understanding, or the Bible has a contradiction, because in the next chapter, chapter 11, it says in verse 1, in chapter 11, verse 1, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So, again, that would give somebody, wait a minute, but it said in chapter 10, that after his own tongue, meaning there were different languages, and after their families, different families in their nation. So, but the thing of it is, I just wanted to share with you all that it's not a country. If you ever run across that, and someone try to...
Hello? You there? You there? Ark, you there?
Hello?
You there?
Yeah.
You there? I didn't hear it go ding.
Me either.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good point.
Here he
Yeah,
goes.
he got kicked off.
Yeah.
He got kicked off. Shalom, shalom.
It's deep. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at Genesis 10 and 20, it does the same thing with Ham, though. It says, these are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So it does the same thing with Ham, too, as it did with the Gentiles. You know, It's saying that we're all governed by that. You know, tongues, families, countries, and nations.
I was comparing chapter 10, verse 5 with chapter 11, verse 1. Yeah, Genesis, that's right. Verse 11, when it may appear to be a contradiction, and just for people to know that when you're looking at this, keep in mind who is the author of this, which is Moses, who is getting everything from the Most High. And Moses was born way after this time. He was writing about things in the past, that he wasn't actually walking the earth when he's talking about these things, right? So what you see in the Table of Nations, just as you spoke about, this is like a table of contents, or table of nations, or giving a breakdown of all the nations. It's not putting it in chronological order, even though most of Genesis is in chronological order. It starts off with the creation and goes to Adam and Eve. It goes, so it's in chronological from Abraham and then to Isaac, Jacob. Everything is in order all the way into the end of Genesis. But this particular table is like he inserted the actual nations, because he's talking about, as it ended in verse 9, Noah and his 3 sons being the only survivors of the deluge, the flood. And so when he breaks it down after verse 9, it goes chapter 9, it goes into chapter 10. Now he plugs in the whole order, so it's all there as who begot who are the children of Japheth, who are the children of Ham, who's the children of Shem, and that way you have it all there. Then, so it's talking, when he said dividing their lands, everyone after his tongue, that they were speaking different languages, because that's after the Tower of Babel. And it's evidence in there in chapter 11 that talks about
11 should be 10.
Exactly. But even though 11 is there, it starts off after it gives a table of nations of the families of Noah. Then it goes back to when all the world was speaking, the whole earth was speaking one language, and then it goes on into where it got to the Tower of Babel when the languages were confused, and then that fits in with chapter 10 at that point. But anyway, I just want to make that it's some more points on that, so people don't be tripped up if someone try to say, well, the Bible ain't real. Look at here. It says right here in one chapter that's before that they all there was different languages, and then in chapter 11, which is afterwards, it says that there was only one language. Somebody has some explaining to do. So I can explain it, but I just want to let you all know that chapter 10 is just like a table of the breakdown of the nations, just as we called it, the table of nations, and it's not putting it in order. It's talking about exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I can see that. I can see that. I can see 11 being 10 and 10 being 11 easily. Because they had to have their generations to come out. They had to have children and children. For it to get to Genesis chapter 10 level, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years right there. Because everything's broken down. So the earth had to be populated, because it says go out and multiply. So Genesis 11 would fit after Genesis chapter 9 pretty easily to me, because of course the Most High always have order, but once evil comes in, things splinter. splinters. And Genesis 11 is a perfect example of things splintering into Genesis chapter 10, Table of Nations.
Exactly. And you notice in chapter 11, too, that as you go through the first 9 verses, it's talking about, when those first 9 verses are talking about one language and there being a confusion, and now they are multiple languages. Then notice in verse 10, it goes back and focuses back on Shem and Shem only. It goes to the whole genealogy of the generations of Shem. But see, in the Table of Nations, it did all 3 to give a breakdown of who all were which and where they came from and so forth. But then you see chapter 11 only focusing on the important one, which is Shem, as far as where Abraham came from, because that's when they wrote into Abraham in in chapter 12. So it's just laying the foundation. So I just want to, again, put that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point,
people can, not miss it and get confounded when someone brings that up and thinking that, maybe something is wrong here. No, it's not. Not at all. And the other point I wanted to bring out, too, was that we did a study last night, me and Mayne. We used that verse in Exodus 31, 17, and 18. We went over that and a lot of Matthew 12, a lot.
Really?
So it's